A woman insulted a homeless waitress, trying to humiliate her in front of everyone. The restaurant fell foul, but the bikers sitting nearby couldn't tolerate what they saw. Moments later, their reaction left everyone in shock. No one could have imagined what happened next. The Friday evening crowd at Rosie's diner filled every booth and table. Sarah wiped down the counter, her worn sneakers squeaking against the tile floor. Her uniform hung loose on her thin frame, the fabric frayed at the edges. She'd been living in her car for 3 weeks, parking behind the grocery store each night. The manager knew her situation but kept her on because she worked harder than anyone else. Before we continue, let us know in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the Ride for Justice. A blonde woman in designer clothes walked through the door, her heels clicking sharply. She scanned the room with a disgusted expression, her nose wrinkled as if the place offended her. Her companion, an older man in an expensive suit, followed quietly behind. They chose a booth near the window and Sarah grabbed 2 menus. "Welcome to Rosie's," Sarah said, forcing a smile despite her exhaustion. "Can I start you off with something to drink?" The blonde woman looked up slowly, her eyes traveling from Sarah's scuffed shoes to her pulled-back hair. "You look like you sleep on the street. Do you actually work here, or are you begging for change?" The surrounding tables went quiet. Conversations died mid-sentence. Forks stopped moving. Sarah's face flushed red, but she maintained her composure. "I'll give you a moment to look at the menu. Don't walk away when I'm talking to you." The woman snapped, her voice carrying across the diner. "I asked you a question. You smell like you haven't showered in days. This is disgusting. I want a different server. A clean one." Sarah's hands trembled as she clutched the menus. Her eyes glistened, but she refused to cry in front of this woman. The man with the blonde looked uncomfortable, shifting in his seat, but said nothing. In the corner booth, 6 bikers sat watching. Their leather vests displayed patches from cross-country rides. The largest man, Marcus, set down his coffee cup. His jaw tightened. His companions exchanged glance, their casual dinner interrupted by something none of them could ignore. Marcus stood first, his chair scraping against the floor. He was 6'4", with a grey beard and arms covered in tattoos. The other bikers rose with him, creating an imposing wall of leather and muscle. The blonde woman finally looked over, her confident expression faltering slightly. "Is there a problem?" she asked, trying to sound authoritative. Marcus walked slowly toward her table, his boots heavy on the floor. The entire diner watched in complete silence. Sarah stepped back, unsure what would happen next. The manager emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands, his apron, frozen in place. "Yeah, there's a problem," Marcus said, his voice calm but firm. "You just disrespected someone who's working 3 times harder than you probably ever have in your life." The woman laughed nervously. "Excuse me, this is none of your business. I'm a paying customer, and I have standards. Look at her. She's clearly homeless. This restaurant should have standards too." "She is homeless," Marcus replied. "Her name is Sarah. She's been working doubles all week, saving money to get back on her feet. I know because my daughter goes to school with her son, and she tells me how Sarah makes sure that kid never misses a meal, even when she does." The blonde woman's face twisted. "Then she should get a real job instead of serving food when she can't even take care of herself. It's unsanitary." Marcus's companion, a woman named Rita with silver hair and kind eyes, stepped forward. "Sarah showers at the community center every morning before her shift. She keeps her uniform cleaner than most people keep their Sunday commons. She's not the problem here, you are." The restaurant manager finally found his voice. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." "What?" The blonde woman stood abruptly. "You're kicking me out. I'm the customer. She's the one who should be fired." "Sarah is one of my best employees," the manager said firmly. "She shows up on time, works every shift I give her, and treats everyone with respect. Something you clearly don't understand." The woman's face turned red with anger. "Do you know who I am? I'll ruin this place on every review site. I'll make sure nobody eats here again." Marcus crossed his arms. "Go ahead. But before you do, you should know something about us." The blonde woman glanced at the group of bikers, suddenly looking less confident. Her companion finally spoke, his voice quiet. "Linda, maybe we should just go." "Shut up, Richard," she hissed. "I'm not leaving until I get an apology from management and that girl is fired." One of the other bikers, a younger man named Jake, pulled out his phone. "Say that again. I'm recording. I want everyone to see what kind of person you are." The blonde woman, Linda, lunged for Jake's phone, but he stepped back easily. "That's assault," he said calmly. "And it's on video now." Linda's perfectly made-up face contorted with rage. She turned back to the manager. "You're seriously choosing some homeless trash over a real customer. Fine, I'll call the health department. I'll report that you're employing someone who lives in filth." Sarah's composure finally cracked. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but she kept her head up. "I lost my apartment because my ex-husband stopped paying child support and disappeared. I work 70 hours a week between 2 jobs, trying to save enough for a deposit on a new place. My son stays with my sister during the week so he can have stability. I'm sorry if my situation offends you, but I'm trying my best." The diner erupted in support. Regular customers who knew Sarah began standing, voicing their approval of her. An elderly man at the counter spoke up. "Sarah remembers my late wife's favorite order and still makes it for me every Friday. She's got more class in her pinky than you have in your whole body, lady." Linda looked around, realizing the entire restaurant had turned against her. "You're all crazy. This place is a dump, and you're all trashy people defending trash." Marcus took another step forward. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave now, and you're going to think real hard about what kind of person you want to be." "Or what?" Linda challenged, though her voice shook slightly. "What are you going to do? Hit me? I'll have you arrested." Rita laughed. A sound without humor. "Nobody's going to touch you. But see that camera in the corner, and the dozen phones recording right now? You're already famous. By tomorrow morning, everyone will know exactly who Linda." She glanced at the expensive purse on the table, noting the monogram tag, "Linda Hartwell is," and what kind of person she really is. Linda's eyes widened. She grabbed her purse quickly, and suddenly Richard was pulling her toward the door. "Linda, we're leaving. Now." But Linda wasn't finished. She spun around one last time. "You want to know the truth? People like her are homeless because they're lazy. Because they made bad choices. Because they're not smart sap or strong enough to succeed. Society would be better off if..." She never finished the sentence. Marcus moved with surprising speed for his size, positioning himself directly in front of her, blocking her exit. "You're done talking." The tension in the room became suffocating. Several other customers stood, forming a half-circle around Linda and Richard. The message was clear: she'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Richard finally showed some backbone, pulling Linda firmly toward the door. "We're leaving. I'm sorry for this," he said to the room at large. As they reached the door, Rita called out, "Wait!" Everyone turned. She walked slowly toward Linda, her expression unreadable. When she was inches away, she spoke quietly, but everyone heard. 20 years ago, I was exactly where Sarah is. Living in my car, working 2 jobs, trying to keep my kids fed. And you know who helped me? A stranger in a diner, who paid for my meal and slipped $200 into my apron pocket with a note that said, "Keep going. It gets better." That stranger changed my life. Rita reached into her vest pocket and pulled out a worn photograph. She showed it to Linda. "This is me and my daughter at her college graduation. She's a social worker now, helping families in crisis. My son is a teacher. They're good people because they learned that kindness matters more than money." Linda stared at the photo but said nothing. Her face had gone pale. Rita continued, "I started a non-profit 5 years ago. We help women and families experiencing homelessness. We provide temporary housing, job training, and support. The bikers here, they volunteer every weekend. We've helped over 300 families get back on their feet." She turned to Sarah. "How much do you need for an apartment deposit?" Sarah wiped her eyes. "About $1,500, but I can't accept." "You're not accepting. You're receiving what you've earned through your hard work and dignity." Rita pulled out her phone and made a quick transfer. "Check your account. It's done. Plus first month's rent. And I know a landlord who won't run you through a credit gauntlet." Sarah stared at her phone screen as the notification appeared. Her legs buckled, and the manager caught her arm. "This isn't real," she whispered. Marcus smiled for the first time. "It's real, and starting Monday, if you want it, you've got a job at our community center. Better hours, better pay, and you can bring your son with you after school." The diner exploded in applause. Customers whistled and cheered. The cook came out from the kitchen, wiping tears from his eyes. Even Jake's video recorded the moment as the tension transformed into something beautiful. Linda stood frozen at the door, watching this unfold. For a moment, something flickered across her face, regret, perhaps, or shame. But then she straightened her shoulders, lifted her chin, and walked out without another word. Richard lingered for just a moment. He reached into his wallet, pulled out $500, and placed it on Sarah's table. "I'm sorry," he said simply, then followed Linda into the night. The diner slowly returned to normal volume, but the energy had changed completely. Sarah sat down in an empty booth, overwhelmed. Rita slid in across from her while Marcus and the other bikers returned to their corner, though they kept watchful eyes on everything. "I don't understand," Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why would you do this for someone you don't even know?" Rita smiled gently. "Because someone did it for me. Because that's how we survive these systems designed to keep us down. We lift each other up. We create the safety nets that should exist but don't." The manager brought over coffee and a full meal, setting it in front of Sarah. "On the house. And Sarah, take the weekend off. Paid. You've earned it." One by one, other customers approached the table. An older woman pressed a $20 bill into Sarah's hand. "For your boy. Buy him something nice." A young couple left a 50. A construction worker left his business card. "We're always hiring, better pay than here, and we need good people." Sarah couldn't stop crying, but now they were different tears. The kind that came from being seen, truly seen, as a human being worthy of dignity and help. Jake approached with his phone. "This video has already been shared 500 times. People are asking how they can help. Do you have a way for people to donate?" Rita nodded. "Give them our non-profit's information. Every dollar goes directly to families like Sarah's. We don't take administrative fees. The bikers and I all have day jobs. This is purely about helping." Within an hour, while they sat in that diner, the video had spread across multiple platforms. Comments poured in, sharing similar stories of hardship and the strangers who'd helped them through. Others condemned Linda's behavior. Some recognized her and shared that she was the wife of a local real estate developer who'd recently been accused of predatory lending practices. But Rita stopped reading the comments about Linda. "That's not what this is about," she told the group. "This isn't about tearing someone down. It's about building Sarah up." Marcus ordered dessert for the entire diner, paying for everything himself. "We're celebrating," he announced, "because tonight we witnessed something important. We saw someone stand up for what's right. We saw a community come together, and we saw someone's life change for the better." The other bikers raised their coffee mugs. "To Sarah," one of them called out. "To Sarah," the entire diner echoed. Sarah looked around at these strangers who'd become her defenders, her advocates, her supporters in the span of an hour. "I promise I'll pay it forward," she said. "When I'm back my feet, I'll help someone else the way you've all helped me." By Sunday morning, the video had millions of views. National news outlets picked up the story. Reporters called Rosie's Diner, asking for interviews. The manager declined them all, protecting Sarah's privacy. But Rita's non-profit received so many donations that their website temporarily crashed. Sarah spent Saturday apartment hunting with Rita, finding a 2-bedroom place near her sister's house. Her son could finally come home. When she told him, he cried with relief. "I missed you, Mom," he said, hugging her tightly. The community center where Marcus worked became flooded with volunteer applications. The bikers organization received dozens of requests from other chapters wanting to start similar programs. What had begun as one woman's cruelty had sparked something much larger, a movement of ordinary people deciding to help instead of judge. But Linda's story took a different turn. Someone identified her from the video and shared information about her husband's business practices. Investigations were launched into predatory lending allegations. Their social circle began distancing themselves. Linda posted an apology on social media, but it felt hollow, written by a PR consultant rather than from genuine remorse. Richard, however, did something different. He reached out to Rita's non-profit and made a substantial anonymous donation. Then he filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. In a brief statement to a local reporter, he said only, "I've been complicit in a lifestyle that valued the wrong things. That ends now." Sarah started her new job on Monday. The community center was bright and welcoming, filled with families seeking help, volunteers offering services, and staff members who treated everyone with respect. Her son attended the after-school program, making friends with other kids whose families were rebuilding their lives. One afternoon, a woman came into the center looking lost and frightened. She wore dirty clothes and carried everything she owned in a backpack. Sarah recognized the look in her eyes, the same desperation and shame she'd felt just weeks earlier. Sarah approached her gently. "Hi, I'm Sarah. Whatever you're going through, you're not alone." "We're here to help." The woman broke down, and Sarah held her while she cried. Then she got her registered for services, found her a warm meal, and connected her with housing resources. It felt full circle, passing along the grace she'd received. Marcus watched from his office doorway, smiling. "You're a natural," he told Sarah later. "I know what it feels like," she replied simply. The diner incident became a teaching moment in communities across the country. Schools discussed empathy and judgment. Churches organized outreach programs. The simple act of bikers standing up for a waitress had reminded people that dignity and respect should be universal, not privileges reserved for those with money or status. 3 months later, Sarah had saved enough to buy a reliable car. Her son thrived in school, his grades improving now that his life had stability. She'd been promoted at the community center to help coordinate a housing assistance program, using her first-hand experience to better serve others. The bikers still came to Rosie's diner every Friday. Sarah would join them when her shift at the center ended, sharing a meal and stories. They'd become her extended family, the people who'd seen her at her lowest, and lifted her up without judgment or expectation of repayment. One Friday evening, Marcus had news. "We're expanding the non-profit, opening 3 more locations in neighboring counties. And Sarah, we want you to help train the staff. Teach them what you've learned, how to connect with people experiencing homelessness with dignity and understanding." Sarah felt overwhelmed by gratitude. "A year ago, I was sleeping in my car. Now you're trusting me with this responsibility." Rita laughed. "A year ago, you were surviving against impossible odds while maintaining your integrity and work ethic. That's exactly why we trust you." The door to the diner opened, and everyone looked up. Linda walked in, looking different than before. Her designer clothes were replaced with simple jeans and a sweater. Her hair was pulled back plainly. She stood nervously by the entrance, scanning the room until her eyes found Sarah. The diner went quiet again, but this time the tension felt different. Linda walked slowly to the counter where Sarah sat with the bikers. "I don't expect forgiveness," she began, her voice shaking, "but I owe you an apology. A real one. What I said and did was unforgivable. I've spent months in therapy trying to understand why I thought it was acceptable to treat another human being that way." Sarah studied her carefully. "What changed?" "Everything," Linda said. "My marriage ended. My social circle abandoned me. I lost the protection of money and status. And suddenly I understood how fragile everything really is. I started volunteering at a homeless shelter. I've been listening to people's stories, understanding their struggles, and I realized that I could have just as easily been you if circumstances had been different." She placed an envelope on the counter. "I know money doesn't fix what I did, but I wanted to donate to the non-profit that helped you. It's not charity, it's penance. It's the beginning of trying to be a better person." Sarah opened the envelope. The check inside was for $50,000. She looked up at Linda, seeing genuine remorse in her eyes. "Why are you really here?" "Because I need to know if there's any possibility of forgiveness. Not for my sake, but because I need to believe that people can change, that we can grow beyond our worst moments." The bikers watched silently, letting Sarah handle this on her own terms. She took a long moment before responding. "I forgive you, not because you deserve it, but because holding on to anger hurts me more than it hurts you. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, it means choosing not to let your cruelty define my future." Linda nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you. That's more grace than I deserve." As Linda turned to leave, Rita called out, "If you're serious about changing, about understanding, we could use volunteers at the new locations. People with different perspectives, who've learned hard lessons. If you want to do more than write checks." Linda paused. "I'd like that. I need to earn back my humanity." Sarah watched Linda leave, feeling a strange sense of closure. Marcus put a hand on her shoulder. "You handled that with more grace than most people could manage." "I remembered what you told me that night," Sarah said. "This isn't about tearing people down, it's about building people up. All people, even the ones who've hurt us, if they're willing to genuinely change." The diner returned to its normal buzz of conversation and clinking silverware. Sarah finished her coffee, thinking about how one terrible moment had transformed into something beautiful. A reminder that humanity's best qualities emerge when people choose kindness over cruelty, understanding over judgment, and action over indifference. The bikers raised their mugs one more time. "2 second chances," Jake said. "To dignity," Rita added. "To standing up for what's right," Marcus finished. Sarah raised her mug with them, smiling through grateful tears. "To all of us, Thank you for seeing me when I felt invisible. The following weeks brought unexpected developments. Linda kept her word, showing up at the community center every Tuesday and Thursday. She worked alongside Sarah, learning to listen without judgment, to serve without condescension. The other volunteers watched her carefully at first, skeptical of her motivations. But Linda proved consistent, showing up early, staying late, and doing whatever tasks were needed without complaint. One Thursday afternoon, a family came into the center, a mother with 3 children, all looking exhausted and frightened. The woman clutched an eviction notice, her hands shaking. Sarah began the intake process, but the woman was too distressed to focus on the paperwork. Linda, who'd been organizing donated clothes nearby, approached slowly. "I know this is terrifying," she said quietly. "I went through an eviction last month. I know that sick feeling in your stomach, the shame, the fear of what comes next." The woman looked up, surprised. "You? But you look so put together." "Appearances lie," Linda replied. 6 months ago, I had everything: big house, expensive cars, social status. I thought those things made me better than other people. Then everything fell apart, and I learned how fast you can go from having everything to having nothing. Sarah watched this exchange, recognizing something authentic in Linda's words. She hadn't known about Linda's eviction. The woman had kept that detail private, not seeking sympathy or attention for her own struggles. Linda sat down beside the distressed mother. "These people here, they saved me. Not just with resources, but by treating me like a human being when I didn't deserve it. Let them help you. There's no shame in needing help. The shame is in refusing to offer it when you have the power to do so." The mother broke down, and Linda held her, 2 women from completely different worlds connected by shared vulnerability. Sarah felt something shift inside her, true forgiveness, the kind that goes beyond words into genuine compassion. After the family was settled with emergency housing assistance, Sarah found Linda in the supply closet, quietly crying. "You never told me you were evicted." Linda wiped her eyes. "I didn't want sympathy. I wanted to earn trust through actions, not through playing the victim. My husband's legal troubles froze our assets. Turns out when your money disappears, so do most of your friends. The few who stayed helped me find a small apartment. I'm working at a call center now, trying to rebuild." "Why didn't you tell me this before? At the diner, when you came to apologize?" "Because my suffering doesn't erase what I did to you. I didn't want you to forgive me, because you felt sorry for me. I wanted real forgiveness, earned through change, not granted through pity." Linda leaned against the shelves. "Every day I come here, I see what I could have been if someone had shown me grace earlier. But I also see what I was: cruel, judgmental, blind to my own privilege. Both versions of me are real. I have to live with that." Sarah considered this. "You know what I've learned? People aren't just good or bad. We're all capable of both, depending on our circumstances and choices. You made terrible choices that night, but you're making different choices now. That matters." Marcus appeared in the doorway. "We've got a situation. The owner of the building where we're opening our 3rd location is backing out. Says he doesn't want those kinds of people in his property. We could fight it legally, but that takes time and money we don't have." Linda looked up suddenly. "What's the address?" Marcus told her, and her eyes widened. "I know that building. I know the owner. He's part of my former social circle. Let me make a call." She stepped outside, her phone pressed to her ear. Sarah and Marcus exchanged uncertain glances. 20 minutes later, Linda returned, looking exhausted but satisfied. "He's reconsidering. I reminded him about some business practices of his that wouldn't look good if they became public. I also told him that his decision was being watched, and that I'd personally ensure the community knew which landlords supported vulnerable populations and which ones didn't." "You blackmailed him?" Marcus asked, eyebrows raised. "I leveraged information," Linda corrected. "There's a difference. He's done questionable things, but nothing illegal. Just morally grey. I simply reminded him that reputation matters, and that doing the right thing publicly might offset some of his other choices. By tomorrow, you'll have your lease." Sarah shook her head in amazement. "You used your old connections to help us? Those connections are the only thing from my old life worth keeping. Might as well use them for something good." Linda smiled wryly. "Besides, I know how these people think. I used to be one of them. Sometimes you have to speak their language to get results." True to her word, the lease was signed by Friday morning. The 3rd location opened 2 weeks later, and Linda worked the opening day alongside everyone else. serving meals and processing intake forms for families seeking assistance. Rita pulled Sarah aside during the lunch rush. I never thought I'd say this, but Linda's become an asset. She understands the system from the inside. She knows how to navigate bureaucracy, how to appeal to wealthy donors, how to push back against discrimination without triggering defensiveness. She's different from us, but maybe that's exactly what we need. Sarah nodded. She told me something yesterday, she said. I spent 40 years building walls. Now I'm spending however long it takes to tear them down. I believe her. The community center's success attracted media attention again, but this time Sarah and Linda did interviews together, telling a story of transformation and redemption that resonated deeply. They talked about judgment and grace, about how quickly circumstances can change, and about the importance of seeing everyone's humanity regardless of their current situation. One reporter asked Linda directly, "Do you think you've done enough to make amends for your behavior?" Linda didn't hesitate. "No, I don't think I'll ever do enough." That's not how forgiveness works. You don't earn it through a checklist of good deeds. You change your heart, your actions, your entire approach to life, and you hope that change matters. But the work is never finished. Every day I choose to be better than I was. Some days I succeed, some days I fail, but I keep choosing. The interview went viral, sparking conversations about accountability, change, and the possibility of redemption. Churches invited Linda to speak about her transformation. Schools used the story to discuss empathy and the consequences of cruelty. The diner incident, that had started as a moment of shame, became a teaching tool about humanity's capacity for growth. 6 months after Linda first walked back into Rosie's Diner, the nonprofit held its annual fundraiser. Sarah stood on stage, no longer the frightened waitress living in her car, but a confident advocate for families in crisis. Linda sat in the audience, applauding with everyone else, no longer seeking spotlight or recognition, content to support from the background. During her speech, Sarah said something that captured everything they'd all learned. We live in a world that wants to divide people into categories, good and bad, worthy and unworthy, deserving and undeserving. But life is more complicated than that. We're all one bad month, one unexpected crisis, one moment of weakness away from needing help, and we're all capable of offering that help if we choose compassion over judgment. That's the real lesson here. Not that I was homeless and got help, not even that someone who hurt me eventually changed. The lesson is that we all have the power to choose who we want to be. In every moment, with every interaction, choose kindness, choose understanding, choose to see people's humanity, especially when they're at their lowest. That's how we build communities that actually care for everyone, not just the people who look like us or think like us or have the same amount of money as us. The applause was thunderous. Marcus, Rita, and the other bikers stood, followed by the entire crowd. Linda stood too, tears streaming down her face, clapping until her hands hurt. After the event, as everyone mingled, Linda approached Sarah one last time. "Thank you for giving me a chance to be better. I know I don't deserve your friendship, but I'm grateful for your forgiveness." Sarah smiled. "You know what? I think we can be friends. Real friends. The kind who've seen each other at their worst and chose to believe in each other's best." They hugged. And in that moment, the transformation was complete, not just for Linda or Sarah individually, but for everyone who'd witnessed their journey and chosen to believe that people could change, that grace could triumph over cruelty, and that second chances were worth giving. The bikers gathered around them, forming a circle of protection and support that had started months ago in a diner and had grown into something far bigger, a community built on the simple but radical idea that everyone deserves dignity, respect, and the opportunity to become who they're meant to be.